Reaction Matters presents Diver gets the most horrifying shock of his life and solves a 75-year-old mystery. To make your day just that little brighter, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to be inspired by these heartwarming stories every day. Deep sea diving is an activity that many are fascinated by, but also one that few people will ever end up venturing off to attempt themselves. There are many amazing creatures and environments that are hidden below the surface of the ocean, along with many mysteries that are waiting for mankind to discover them. Unfortunately, there have been many instances where deep-sea divers have encountered way more than they bargained for. These instances are usually followed by extremely devastating consequences that can never be undone. Just like what happened to the diver in this story. This is one experience he'd never be able to forget, no matter how hard he tried. Justin Talon and Michael Micheloni were avid deep-sea divers. They absolutely loved the sense of mystery and adventure that came with deep-sea diving. Their favorite type of place to go deep-sea diving in are relatively remote areas where not a lot of people or boats tend to be in. That way, the wildlife are lively and unafraid to come out and be active, and the environments are undisturbed and kept in the same conditions they've been in for potentially thousands of years. Plus, sometimes it's nice to have a unique experience that no one else has ever had before. Traditional experiences that anyone can participate in can get stale fast. The diving site of choice this time around for Justin and Michael was a coral reef alongside a remote Japanese island called Iriomote-jima. This was a place that potentially held some interesting artifacts from the ancient Japanese era, as well as some undisturbed wreckage sites back from World War II. Needless to say, the pair of divers were very excited to begin their expedition and document their findings. But little did they know, this would be the one diving trip that could change absolutely everything and possibly give them nightmares for years to come. Their expedition didn't start out too exciting. There were some interesting sea creatures they had the pleasure of meeting as they ventured deeper, but nothing remotely resembling ancient artifacts or World War II wreckage sites. Eventually, the divers thought it would be a better idea if they split up to cover more ground. Obviously, they couldn't go too far away from each other because the water was dark and communication was limited. But perhaps they could cover a bit more ground this way and increase the chances of making an interesting discovery. All of a sudden, Justin came across what looked like a flattened metal ship or boat. Thinking this was strange as he's never seen a boat that's been flattened before, he decided to take a closer look and inspect it. Upon further investigation, the flattened boat was determined to be a wrecked plane instead. This made a lot more sense. Completely flattening a boat made of metal is something that's probably impossible unless specific tools or machineries were used to carry out the task. The plane itself looked like it was a standard US warplane from World War II. As Justin was taking pictures of the wreckage site, he noticed that something was still inside the plane. The window was very foggy due to it sitting on the ocean for approximately 75 years, so a clear glimpse at what could be inside wasn't possible to obtain. So Justin took it upon himself to open the door of the plane. Surprisingly, the door opened without any difficulty whatsoever. But shortly after opening the door, a large mass flew out towards Justin, giving him quite the scare. The large mass turned out to be a World War II pilot who must have been flying the aircraft when it crashed in the ocean. The pilot's seatbelt was keeping him attached to the plane. After Justin was able to process what had happened, he began to take more pictures of his discovery. He also started recording a video of the wreckage site and its surroundings so that it would be easier to return to the site later on. Once back at the surface and on their boat, the two divers shared everything they had come across while exploring the area. Michael was relatively surprised that Justin found what he did. It turns out that Justin's discovery was much bigger than he thought. The pilot found in the wreckage site turned out to be U.S. Marine pilot 2nd Lieutenant John McGrath. Michael actually had a connection to the pilot because he was a high school friend of his father. McGrath was also listed as one of approximately 73,000 Americans missing in action from World War II. The case of McGrath had gone cold for years until Justin's discovery off the remote Japanese island. It finally gave Michael and his family closure, as the story of McGrath's disappearance had been a story shared for generations within the family. Now they finally knew what really happened to him, and could be at peace, finally knowing for certain that he's resting in peace. What we really did was bring two incomplete halves of a story together for the first time. So now the Japanese know who this pilot is who they have prayed for. And now John McGrath's family and the city of Troy, New York, knows where their son is, he said. What are the odds of Michael eventually being the one to finally put the case to rest? It's amazing that of all the people that could have discovered the wreckage, it was this diving team. That just goes to show that it's a small world, and things really do end up happening for a reason.